All right, we are back for another episode of When in Rome with Michael. That's me, and Matt, my co-host.
That's me.
Uh, Last week we took a little bit of a break because it was my kid's 5th birthday on Thursday, and I had a lot of prep work to get done.
The big one. The big five.
Yeah, it was a good time. He had it. We did his family birthday celebration on Thursday, obviously, and then on Sunday he had his first big birthday party, which was a blast. Very exhausting, but it was really fun to put together. But yeah, we are here to take a look at the Ancient Rome in 20 minutes video and continue our discussion on that. But before we go into that, I'll let my co-host introduce himself.
Yes, I'm Matt C. You probably saw me on Twitter doing weird polls and talking about tiki drinks. And I have a abiding interest in late antiquity and the late Roman Empire, and I make a comic set in the 3rd century North African Roman frontier called Kyrie.
Yeah, and it is a fantastic book. Proud supporter of Kyrie or whatever its name is this week. However we decide to pronounce
say
it.
It's Kyrie this week. We'll just say that.
So last week we, I guess I should introduce myself. I'm Michael Oden. I'm the creator and founder of Nine Realms Publishing, writer of such books such as Elysian Fields and The Embrace, and SPQR's Bizarre Adventure. Last week we talked a lot about Julius Caesar as we analyzed the absolute and utter character assassination done by this Ancient Rome in 20 minutes video. This week
and it was amazing. It was amazingly terrible. So
it was bad. It was worse than I had expected. I remember it being not great, but when we were going through and actually listening to it, it was not only were they skewing things to paint a specific narrative, they were just straight up lying about stuff. I think my jaw actually hit the floor when we were on camera when they were talking about, well, the Senate wanted to give him a triumph for his victory at Elysia, and he decided that he was going to do something different. And I was just excuse me, what? But anyways, we are now at this point in the video, we are shifting towards the Empire. We're going to be looking at how this video discusses the rise of Gaius Octavian, who will of course become Augustus. So let's get the party started. We're gonna have this up. There we go.
It's gonna be a good one.
Gotta make sure that that's unmuted. All right, here we go.
Unexpectedly, for all concerned, to his grandnephew, 19-year-old Gaius Octavius. This Octavian immediately joined in the power struggle. In 31 BC, he defeated his last rival, the warlord Mark Antony, who likewise had...
Wow, okay. So,
the warlord, Mark Antony, also known for his late 2000s R&B music.
Yes. So, here we go again, skipping over triumvirate once more, because apparently the triumvirates just aren't important to talk about at all in the history of Rome. It's not a quintessential part that absolutely should be mentioned or anything. It's not like the whole concept of a triumvirate wasn't repeated multiple times throughout history. And it's not like the people involved with those things were any bit influential. Like, this is ridiculous. Like, again, these guys are trying to break down the history of Rome in 20 minutes. And I understand that there are certain things that are going to be cut out. But triumvirates are not one of those things that should be cut out. And this goes to show it's like, really what these guys needed to do is do a 3-part series and do 20 minutes. Like, you could really realistically do 10 minutes on the kings, 20 minutes on the Republic, and then the Empire has to be split into 2 parts: 20 minutes on the rise of the Empire and 20 minutes on the fall.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it's funny because you could imagine, there'd be a monetary reason. Like, this is a monetized video.
Yeah.
You think they'd want to, monetize 3 videos more than 1. But, like, I get the idea that they want to break it. They want to see, it's almost like, you want to check in to see, can they even pull it off, right? To put everything into 1 video. But I can't see the benefit of putting it all into 1 video. It's bizarre that they would want to try, but I would just assume that if they did 3 videos, they just botched 3 videos rather than 1, because it does seem like the selective bias is so consistent.
Like, and that's the whole deal. Is, to me, I think, like, I get why they are doing this. It's just like they're trying to help people get a better grasp of history and give people ease of access. And generally, the attention span of a internet dweller will be polite, is not particularly large. And so doing like, we'll do 1 video of ancient Rome that's like 20 minutes long, that's easily digestible. But at the same time, it's like, you guys have severely pigeonholed yourselves on what information you can and cannot put out there. And the fact of the matter is that to give a cursory talk about Rome, you need longer than 20 minutes for the entire. Like, you're talking about a period of time that stretched literally millennia.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Like, if you're counting, if you're counting the Eastern Romans, Constantinople doesn't fall until the 1400s. So you're talking about literally the kingdom of from the kings of Rome to the fall of Constantinople. You are talking almost 2 millennia of history. You are not going to fucking cover that in 20 minutes.
Do you think is this kind of serving a market? It's kind of like the drunken history type market, where it's like,
but even the drunken history,
it's almost kind of funny how,
because like the drunken history people are like, we'll focus on like a singular topic and we'll break it down in a funny way that you'd hear between 2 drunk people at a bar, right? Like, let's talk about Cleopatra, and it's like, we're like, the drunken history did a Cleopatra one, and like it, they get celebrities in there, and it's really funny, and each of those videos is like 5 to 10 minutes, but it's on a very specific topic. Like, you have Lin-Manuel Miranda come on and do a segment on Hamilton, because of course, guy that does the musical of Hamilton, you're going to do that. It makes sense. But to try and condense thousands of years of history and legacy into 20 minutes of video, you're going to be omitting some real important shit. And it would be better if they had done it in like 2 or 3 videos.
Like maybe they could have leaned in more of a humorous direction, and then it wouldn't really matter, when you skip a lot, because it'd just be like, well, they're clearly they're just kind of hamming up their selective presentation. So it's like meant to be entertaining, but it's Who's the voice guy again with this? Is it Rip Torn, or am I confusing Rip Torn?
Oh man, that's what's so disappointing. Is it's freaking Brian
dead, I think.
Cox.
Yeah, Brian
Cox,
Yeah.
who played Agamemnon in Troy. Like,
yeah. Yeah. So it's like you couldn't have gotten him drunk. Like you know what I mean? Like there'd be a different tactic where this would have been more appropriate, but it feels serious. And yet, so if it feels serious, the expectation is that you're gonna be able to handle just the cliff notes on a fair, neutral.
That's the
level.
problem. It's like this isn't even up to Cliff Notes standard. Cliff Notes would be ashamed of this.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's frustrating.
Let's get back to this. Let's see what we get to skip over next. All right, Matt. What's your bet? How much more time do we get with Gaius Octavian? Because we got a solid 3 minutes with Caesar that we were able to stretch over like an hour and a half an hour of content. Right.
Oh, I think they're going to talk. I think they're going to talk about that he didn't die from getting stabbed to death. They're going to talk about a relatively long life. They're going to talk about Octavia, and then they're just going to move straight into like late first century.
Augustus didn't get stabbed to death, did he? I thought that he died of old age.
Yeah, that's what I mean. They're going to contrast. I feel like they're going to just point out that he.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean?
Well, I mean, it's funny because he'll give laurels to the guy that really was the first emperor, but then you'll accuse Julius Caesar of being, all right, and we're like, no,
yeah.
And we have no one in the chat currently. A little bit earlier, we had unhinged comment, "I love you" in the chat, and I responded, "Rome loves you too, Jason. Thanks."
That's great. They'll catch the replay.
Yeah.
Shout out to everyone in the replay. Thanks for hanging out.
Yeah, shout out to everyone in the replay. I'll mention the name Mo Biggs so that so somebody alerts him in the Ethereum.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, let's carry on with the shenanigans.
An affair with Cleopatra. The lovers would take their own lives. Octavian was left sole ruler of a vast territory.
Wow. Okay. I mean, to be fair, I guess that's about as anticlimactic as the Battle of Actium was. So.
Yeah. So he's just left. It's funny how if just a couple words, it's so tough. You got to really be careful with words with this brief of a survey. It's like, so he's just left. Like everybody else dies, and Augustus is just left with an empire, or is that?
It's like okay, what happened to the Senate? It's one of these. It's one of these things where like this is really where the big problem is. A lot of people don't realize this, but the Senate existed throughout the entirety of the empire. The Senate was never dissolved. Even when things shifted to Constantinople, they had their own version of it. We've got somebody in the chat. We got a Crazy Mad. Hail, Crazy Mad.
Hey, hail.
Crazy Mad, just to let you know, we mentioned the boogeyman Mo Biggs, so just to put ears out there, because I'm sure that he's lurking somewhere out there. But anyways, Crazy Mad, you haven't missed much. Well, actually, you have. You've missed like 2 decades worth of history stated in, let's see, what time? What was the time hack that we started this at?
Like 33 BC or something.
So we started this when it was at the 1015 mark, and we're at 1038. So in 23 seconds, you missed decades of history.
Yeah, for a 20-minute video, that's a lot considering how much ink is spilt. on those decades for the
Yeah, well, I
that
mean,
two millennia.
we had to spend all that time making Julius Caesar out to be a villainous tyrant.
Yeah.
Alex RVB, math is hard. It is at 10 p.m. at night. It is. I've had some alcohol, and it's 10. So yeah, math is a little bit hard. So sue me. Caesar. Just crazy man said I wouldn't say I missed it. Fair enough. Caesar did nothing wrong. Yeah, fair enough. I agree. Hashtag pesky goals. Anyways, carrying on with the Empire of Augustus. All right, so it's 27 BC to 1480. We've got this like millimeter stretch between those two. How much do we want to bet that this is about how much time is dedicated to talking about Augustus's time as emperor, and how much are they going to boil this down into garbage? We might be able to get through the entire Julio Claudian tonight. This is going to be fun.
Yeah, if memory serves, they skip stuff that I think even they would have been interested in addressing, even in a sentence.
All right, this comment from Alex VRB tentatively wins tonight at 2 Mathematica. I might need to get that on a t-shirt. I'll get that designed. Let's just watch the movie Gladiator instead. Then you'll get a whole other drunken rant from me. Because the moviegoer in me loves Gladiator.
Oh,
the
course.
Historian in me very much dislikes Gladiator. When can we discuss the historical accuracy of Braveheart? We won't. Because Scots weren't piped by that point in time. Oh no, you're one of those people. Dude, I'm a freaking history major. Of course I'm one of those people. I look at things and I go, yeah, that's not that's not good. Like, don't get me wrong. There's a point where I'm able to forgive artistic license and what have you, and there are certain things where it comes down to like you're writing a narrative. Turn Washington Spies is a great example of they take a lot of facts and twist them to make a more compelling story. And I'm good with that. Yeah. But there are certain things that, like in Gladiator, when you have a female go into the Senate House and dictate terms to senators and them being overjoyed at the prospect of it, it's going to get under someone like me's skin who will go, that's a good way for a woman to get killed no matter what status she has. No, because Abraham Lincoln Vampire Slayer was created as a parody and as a joke. It's a dark horror comedy movie. It is a joke. Gladiator is meant to be a historical epic. Key word, historical. Anyways, moving on, going to see what this video says about the Empire of Augustus, or how much they don't say. We'll find out.
Julius Caesar ruled for 4 years. Octavian, assuming the title Augustus, meaning the Venerable or the Great, ruled for an endless 43 years.
Matt, you were not far off. Right off the bat. Oh, well, everyone talks about how great Julius Caesar is, but he only ruled for 4 years. Octavian ruled for 43. Like, okay, so it's all right when Augustus does it, but it's not okay when Julius Caesar does it, even though he was never actually emperor.
Yeah. If you're not okay with autocratic control of an empire, you should be more worried about Augustus, Octavius. But yeah.
Oh man.
I mean, that's
Like
I get it. I'm like that's the pop perspective is that he was around for a long time. Like that's kind of
I mean,
what you say
yes.
about Augustus.
He's also the only other person in Roman history to have had the gates of Janus closed during his reign. So, as a bit of a thing with that, so during the kings of Rome, the second king Numa Pompilianus was very much renowned as being a pious king, and one of the things that he did was he allegedly built the gates of Janus. Janus was the Roman deity of fortune and doors and a whole bunch of things. But effectively, Numa stated that whenever the gates were open, it was a time of war, and whenever they were closed, it was a time of peace. And so there were only two other people that led Rome during periods when the doors of Janus were closed. And one was one of the later kings of Rome, and then the other was Emperor Augustus. Now let's talk about how the Byzantines were actually Romans, and historians who say otherwise are artards. I'm all down with the Byzantines being the Eastern Romans. Like,
yeah.
I don't.
They thought of themselves that way. Their enemies and friends thought of them that way. So I don't know why to rewrite that.
They became the inheritors of Rome the moment that Constantine shifted the capital from Rome to Constantine. Yes, he split Constantinople. Yes, he split the empire in two. But I mean, the Eastern Romans didn't call Constantinople Byzantium. It hadn't been called Byzantium since before the Romans had established their capital there. That was the Greek name for it. And it had been abandoned when Constantine established it as his new capital.
Well, I mean, you've got, the late 3rd century, the empire was being run in northern Italy. It's not the only time that the administrative capital was moved, and it was frequently moved for the same reasons, for security reasons, or where's the biggest threat?
I mean, even towards the end of the empire, Rome is no longer the seat of the Western Roman Empire. By the time the Western Roman Empire falls, Rome had been the center of the capital of Western Rome for decades. It had been moved to Ravenna. But anyways, carrying on with the video, we've already started off with the literal dick measuring. Look, made Augustus Caesar this massive thing, and then Julius Caesar micro down here. Like, everything in this video is to shit on Julius Caesar and his accomplishments during these segments. It's fantastic. So, carrying on.
He didn't formally abolish the Republic. He simply took control of all possible positions, making his power.
Wait 1 second. So if he didn't formally abolish the Republic, wouldn't that mean that the Republic was still in state under Caesar?
Yeah, good point.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. What's the issue that they're trying to address here?
Well, they're saying Julius Caesar was better because he kept the Senate around. So Augustus Caesar is better. It's like, so did Julius. And in fact, you guys just ever so conveniently failed to mention the fact that Julius Caesar granted a general amnesty for all of his enemies that in the Senate that had sided with Pompey during the Civil War.
Yeah, yeah. Which doesn't fit the narrative if you just want to say he was left with the empire, But if
Yeah.
he was an active agent in securing it and bringing in that peace,
Cicero is rolling over in his grave right now.
yeah,
Is what's going on.
yeah.
Like, oh man.
Mhm.
Power almost absolute. But he modestly called himself Princeps, the first senator. And even
Hey, Matt,
Yeah,
name one word that you would never use to describe Augustus Caesar.
yeah. Modest, yeah, yeah. I only
Yes,
found a city of brick and turned it to a city of marble.
I totally didn't hire the best poet of my time to write a Homeric epic to establish my legitimacy as the greatest person ever.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
A
how the
divine figure
Aeneid got
in my
made,
lifetime.
guys. Oh. Okay, so he said, Crazy Matt brings up, granted, I'm not that knowledgeable on the subject, but didn't the Senate stab Julius Caesar like 30 times? Yes, they did. Caesar had declared himself dictator for life, and was making a whole bunch of changes and reforms that were not popular with the patrician class. Caesar was and always had been a popularis, a member of the party of the people, and was making a bunch of reforms that would have been expensive initially for the state, but likely would have provided economic stability in the long run. Point is, they didn't like him, and they got the rumor was spreading that he was going to make himself a king, and so he was assassinated in the Senate. That being said, Caesar never made. We've got a comics mate in the chat throwing in some eyeballs. Hello, Dean.
Oh, hey, buddy.
We never. He never made it his prerogative, at least from any of the primary source documents I've seen, to establish himself at the seat of an empire or new monarchy. In fact, if he were to have done that, his will would have likely passed down his dictatorial powers to his heir. And he did not do that. He passed down his name, his legal name, and his assets to Octavian, but he did not say, "Oh, you're going to be the next dictator of Rome."
Yeah, I always think just one small note.
So,
like rumors of having plans, having ambitions of becoming a king in Rome is almost it's almost like a cultic violation. Like to kind of transgress, that's like crossing a spiritual Rubicon for Romans. Is how I think of it. Like it's not just like, oh, he's gonna sign some more paperwork that's gonna give him a crown or something. It's actually it's violating a bedrock norm of what Roman identity was, Republican identity. So, like an idea like that, like valid or not, the sense that that's where things were going is, I don't know what it almost be like. I don't know, Joe Biden growing a super short mustache or something out of nowhere. Like it would just be like you would get the sense like this is actually deeply like someone actually like it's transgressing into like evil boundaries almost by like what they would expect, because that's the national history is we've moved beyond this particular approach to government, and like never may we return there, right?
The kingship of Rome ended with a massive crime against Roman purity, and
Purity. That's a good description. Yeah.
the rape of Lucretia is probably one of the most powerful stories in Roman history / mythology. And the term king was not something, to put it mildly, was not something that anybody looked at highly in Roman society.
Yeah, it wasn't considered a valid alternative. Just one of many. Yeah, certainly. So,
but
yeah.
To address some things in the chat. So Crazy Man is asking, is Spartacus a real thing at this time? I hate the show, but I love the Kirk Douglas movie. Okay, so Spartacus, this actually happened during the last video. The video kind of talks a little bit about Pompey Magnus. And so Pompey was a critical figure in the Spartacan revolts, in that he and Marcus Crassus put down the Spartacan revolts. It was mainly Crassus, but Pompey swept in at the end and got some credit. But the Spartacan revolts were a legitimate thing. There was a gladiator named Spartacus who broke out of him and a bunch of gladiators in a ludus in Capua, broke out, and they started a slave rebellion. And in fact, one of the things that Caesar was looking at doing was putting restriction on slavery, specifically within the city of Rome, because there was a massive problem with homelessness and poverty in the populace class, because the wealthy people were just buying slaves rather than paying for work. So that was actually a big, hot, topical issue. But
so what you're saying is Julius Caesar was the Abraham Lincoln of.
I'm not going to go that far, because I don't think that he would have banned slavery, but I do think that he was probably going to be putting restrictions on how the slave trade worked and what and like an amount of slaves that a household could have, and
which is populist reform. Yeah, for sure. That's consistent with his.
Dean's in the chat, and Crazy Man saying, Dean, Ogden Gate kept my he's going to defend the Flash movie comment because it has nothing pertinent to do with this conversation. It was the same thing with you bringing up the fact that I would bust on something and then defend, but then I like the MCU. It has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. And then Alex RVB is Biggest Dickus. I have a friend in Rome named Biggest Dickus. Yes. We always appreciate Life of Brian here. You can always tell he's reading one of our comments. He pauses, makes a face, stutters, and then continues. And then Crazy Mad says, I love Ogden, but he is predictable. Yeah, so sue me, I'm human. But anyways, gotta love that Augustus is getting all of this praise, even though he took a page out of Sulla's handbook and killed pretty much every notable person in Rome when he was part of the triumvirate.
Yeah. He shut down any possibility,
including Cicero. But anyways.
Though skirmishes with barbarians continued along the borders, inside them the period of Pax Romana set in, a period of peace and stability.
When would you consider the Pax Romana to begin?
I mean, I'd want to go to like the I'd go to like the good emperor. I'd go to like like early 2nd century.
So
Mhm.
officially, it started in 27 BCE from
Okay.
the reign of Augustus. But that doesn't make sense because by 27 he wasn't on the throne. Oh, yeah, he was. That's right. I keep forgetting it. Okay, so 27 BCE to 14 CE, to the reign of Marcus Aurelius, 161 to 180. All right, I would have considered
Yeah.
I would have considered the Pax Romana to have begun after Nero, but I mean, whatever.
Yeah.
Because like I find it hard to label any time the peace of Rome when Nero allows the city to get sacked and burned.
Yeah. And I like Jewish history, and I'm thinking about 70 AD and 130 AD.
Yeah,
And it's hard for me to like put, you know what I mean?
well, like those are.
I'll take a Roman peace after 130, but before then, I'm thinking about a lot of people getting kicked around in a particular corner of the Levant.
Well, those are just the pesky barbarians on the outside of the empire's borders. And
Yeah.
oh, by the way, we're using a map of the Roman Empire from the height of Trajan to cement what, like, I guess not really, because it doesn't include Dacia or England yet. So either way, like, this is, oof. All right.
Yeah.
That was to last 200 years. The empire experienced an economic upswing. Bread was distributed for free to 200,000 people. On Augustus' orders, a 500-meter basin was dug at the very center of the capital, where 3,000 gladiators mimicked sea battles on real seagoing vessels. In Rome, construction was booming. Concrete multi-story districts were growing. Augustus had to introduce height regulations, limiting skyscrapers to 6 floors. And still the citizens were unhappy. They complained about traffic jams, pollution of the waters of the Tiber, and
I don't think you could call what the Romans were building skyscrapers. Like, how?
That's kind of fun. Like, again, like, they're not leaning enough into like a comedic, entertaining version of history, so it's hard to go with. It's like Cox is like reading this in a very neutral way. So,
well, like, the point of this is to be academic. So the technical definition is a very tall building of many stories. So I guess that's technically accurate. But
and it's fun to surprise people with how urban like Rome really was, and how it looks closer to what we think of as a purely modern phenomenon, modern cities. Like, but that's happened. We've had quote unquote, like, whatever that urban structural system looks like, that's happened many times in the past. And I get it. It's kind of fun to poke at that. And, and Romans spent a lot of time critiquing Roman life in that period. So,
yeah,
how gross it was, or how it was too dense, too crowded.
Let's see if they talk about him being completely blindsided by his daughter's extracurricular activities.
high rents. The golden century of poetry dawned. Maecenas, a quasi-minister of culture, allocated special grants to praise the value of the state. Temples would be built in the honor of Augustus, and even a month was named after him.
Hey, remember when when they called him modest?
Yeah.
All right, carrying on. Oh.
Thus, the cult of the Roman emperors was emerging. They would come to be venerated alongside Mars and Jupiter.
Again, remember, they called him modest. He modestly accepted the term princeps. Also started the divine cult of emperors, had a month named after him, and has several temples built honoring his legacy.
Yeah, it's like Brian Cox was I think he looked it over the morning of in the car on the way to the recording studio, and he didn't catch
Recordings.
where the jokes were gonna land. Like because he could have leaned in, he could have made,
Yeah,
these
but
might have been written as jokes, and he
I
didn't
don't
read them as jokes.
I don't think that the point of this was to be funny. I think that these people are trying to actually be academic, and it sucks
Yeah,
because they're giving
yeah,
people a bad, like, even from just a standpoint of here's some cursory stuff. This is so, like, I don't even understand what the narrative is at this point. Is it
yeah.
let's tear down the legacy of Julius Caesar, or like what is your end game here? Because you're talking about Augustus like he's the best thing since sliced bread, but you literally spent the entire time talking about Julius like he was the biggest villain on the face of the planet.
Yeah, yeah.
So Alex RVB said that while they did have superior concrete to Crazy Man's Rome was the original concrete jungle.
Well said.
Rome was very urban. Excuse me, they didn't even have rap music. Um,
I feel like they had the equivalent back then, but
but well, they did have superior concrete. I don't know if it was on. I think it was on the last stream. Somebody brought up the fact that we actually figured out how the Romans made their concrete recently. Like they added they added lime into their mixture, and that's what their secret was, which is really cool.
oh, awesome! That was recent. That's really cool. I'd like
Yeah.
to read the paper on that.
So, carrying on with this weird propaganda piece.
After Augustus' power became hereditary, the senatorial opposition has left us vivid portraits of the first emperors. Suspicious.
All right. So,
Tiberius.
just for everybody in the chat, this dynasty of emperors is called the Julio-Claudian dynasty. I am saying this because there is every possibility, like, in fact, it's not even a possibility. They are not going to call it this. They are just going to gloss over it, but this is what these guys are. They are the Julio-Claudian. He's asking us how much Italian do we have. I don't really have any. None that I know of. Matt, you?
Oh yeah, it's all English and Irish and a bit of German. So
Yeah, so we're just I-tie posers. It's all good.
Yep.
Anyways, so the Julio-Claudian dynasty is you've obviously got Augustus, then Tiberius, then Caligula, then Claudius, then Nero. Of these emperors, there are maybe two that are good, and the second one of them is obviously Augustus, and then you split Claudius and Tiberius in half, and they make one good emperor. Because they both did good and they both did bad. They were certainly a mixed bag of cats. Alex Harvey says, "Oh no, this entire stream is cultural appropriation." Would have been a fine end to watch from a distance. I don't know. It would have been interesting. According to primary sources, he was actually like really popular initially. People were very excited for him to become emperor. His predecessor was kind of a dick by the end. Tiberius started off pretty strong, and as he got older, went really crazy, probably due to lead poisoning. And became very ruthless. And there's a lot of theory to suggest that he had 2 or 3 of his potential heirs killed because they were more popular than he was, most notably being Germanicus, Caligula's father, and the guy who reclaimed the eagles from lost to Arminius at Teutoburg Forest. So he was very when Caligula came to power, people were pretty excited, and he reigned initially with a lot of potential, and then he got really sick. And when he woke up, he thought that people tried to poison him, and rightfully so. And so he just went off the rails crazy the rest of his rule. But we got Mo Biggs has come into the chat.
Hey, what's up?
Mo is congratulating Alex RVB on the wrench. I'm not sure if I did that, or I have no idea how any of this works. So I need to figure that out. Everyone's hailing Mo to the chat and everything. We'll see how long Mo lasts before I bore him away from this stream. But
hey, can I say one thing? One thing to the cultural appropriation. It's very fair, except that I want to say it was after Trajan. Who was it? It was maybe it was Hadrian. Spanish emperors. After then, there's no more emperors of Italian descent. We have a really rich history. Most of Roman imperial history comes from emperors not of Italian descent. So we're just playing that late imperial game by commenting endlessly on the empire.
Yeah, fair enough. Outstanding. But either way, there were no emperors from England or Ireland, so you're still screwed.
Yeah, that's true. I'll claim Germanic.
If he...
Well, he got that name. That's just the superlative name, right?
Yeah.
That's just a conquering name. That's not where he came from. So I can't even get that.
Crazy man's like, I was going to say I don't even have a wrench here, and I'm like Ogden's best friend, and I was like, I don't know what to do. I'm a little bit under the alcohol today, so. Mo Biggs is saying it was quite a coup. He took the wrench from a Danny supporter. F Danny indeed. All right.
Oh yeah, F Danny.
I'll figure out how to give Crazy Mad a wrench. Give me a sec. I don't even know how to. I'm sure there's a way to do this in. That's not what I want. Can I even add him as a wrench? All I'm seeing is put user in timeout block, neither of which I want to do. I'll figure this out later. All right.
Unleashed terror under the pretext of the law on treason. Under this law, any action could be deemed offensive. It was enough not to sufficiently praise the emperor or pay at a brothel with coins bearing his portrait. In distant Judea, a preacher refusing to worship the emperor as God was crucified. Caligula wanted to make his horse a consul, a scholar and good.
He did not want to make his horse a consul. He made his horse a consul.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess that's not really a technicality worth correcting. But still, he got it done.
Claudius was too occupied with feasting and the reforming of the alphabet to keep an eye on court intrigue. One of his wives, Messalina, was giving women of easy virtue a run for their money in the brothels, and the other, Agrippina, poisoned Claudius with mushrooms to enthrone her son from another marriage.
So we're just not going to talk about the fact that Claudius conquered Britain, right?
Yeah.
I mean, like...
I mean, this is the stuff that people, find titillating, I guess. It keeps their interest going.
Well, it's like
court intrigue stuff.
Don't get me wrong. There's plenty of screwed up stuff to talk about with the Julio Claudians. As I said, of the Julio-Claudian dynasty, there is 2 emperors, and it's literally Augustus, and then you split Tiberius and Claudius in half, and they make one good emperor. But like, I mean, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm not surprised. I'm not even disappointed. Really, it's more of just a, come on, like how much? Of
it's. I mean, you've seen I, Claudius,
yeah,
BBC thing, based on I think it was a novel, right? Like that's all. That's all the court intrigue side. Probably for budget reasons as much as anything. You stick to all the people arguing with each other. You don't show it's not HBO's Rome yet. It's not time for that, There's no budgets for that.
Everything should be HBO's Rome.
Yeah.
Tired of accepting anything but. Yeah. Anyways. Carrying on.
Mm-hmm.
Nero, believing that he was a born actor, not an emperor, would later kill his own mother, and then allegedly the apostles Peter and Paul. Then he again, allegedly, set fire to Rome, so as to read the verses on the fall of Troy during the blaze. He would accuse...
Will they talk about the fact that he made a Fudanari out of guilt for killing his first wife? Let's find out.
He was the first Christians of arson and initiated their persecution. And finally, he took his own life.
Okay. Yes, he blames the Christians for the burning of Rome. They leave out the fact that he was exiled by his successor. The Flavians will be taking charge, and this is where I would really consider the Pax Romana to begin. Yes, you have the Judean revolts, and Matt, I know that things get ugly there, but like the Flavians are where I really consider the true Pax Romana to be, because after Augustus, things were just kind of nuts during the Julio-Claudian. Like, yeah, you had the Judean revolts during the Flavians, but there isn't much outside of that. By this point, Britain has been pacified. The Boudiccan revolts happened during Nero and were put down. There wasn't much going on in Germany or anything like that. Judea was becoming a little bit problematic because of the culture clash, and I don't think that they had ever been officially made a state of the Roman Empire, so much as a weird vassalage, and they were starting to have issues.
It's fair. I mean, there's just so much court chaos in the first century that it's like I get, like, if
also,
if you want to use on your paper, you have to say Pax Romana started when they say it started.
Did they use the same statue for Claudius and Nero? Hold on.
Yeah. I noticed they do a lot of that. They just kind of cut and paste.
They absolutely did. Yeah. Oh, no, they didn't. They got Claudius sitting in this one, and then there's Nero.
Yeah. It's just
I'm
surprised
I'm surprised they didn't get like the bust with him with the neck beard.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Which was
that's like I think it's a 18th century reconstruction. I don't know. I think they only had like his nose and eyes or something, and it was like a late Renaissance neck beard.
Fun fact. Do you know that Nero was actually one of Rome's most popular emperors with the people?
I think I had read that. Yeah.
He was actually so popular that since he was exiled and he allegedly killed himself away from the city, there was like a myth that one day Nero would return to establish a new glorious Rome. And like that was like urban legend in the city. It's really cool to learn about, especially with the historical context of most contemporary historians dog on Nero like it's nobody's business, which begs to question. One of the things that they even bring up in this is that the senatorial sources paint very vivid pictures of these figures, and it really does beg to question how honest of a description were we given about Nero? Was he actually that bad of an emperor, or was he an emperor that did not do what the senatorial class wanted him to do, and as a result was painted in a certain way, but regardless of that, was beloved by his people?
Yeah. Yeah. Which would then it'd be easier to talk about a Roman peace going back to what they say, like 33 BCE. Like that, it could be more fair because you always think about this palace intrigue,
Well, it's
chaos, insanity.
You get
if the public isn't thinking of that.
Caligula and Nero are not people that I associate with stability of Rome.
Right?
Like even Tiberius and Claudius, it's questionable. They're all insane.
Yeah. It's hard to have a Roman peace when you've got that level of insanity happening. But yeah, it's an ongoing debate, right, about how much of that is kind of redacted into the lives of these emperors or spun.
Yep. Well, we're going to finish up this portion here. Let's let them get through the end of Nero here, and then we'll pause it when they start talking about the Flavians. And then that's what we will cover. I think that the next episode will likely be finishing up this video. Or be getting pretty damn close to it. Because there's only 10 minutes. There's less than 10 minutes left on this video. So we'd be able to finish this video, and then we'll have to figure out what more content that we can do for When in Rome. I'm sure we'll be able to find something. I could pull up the oversimplified Punic Wars videos, which are great.
That'd be fun.
But anyways, let's finish up the Julio-Claudians.
Details of this era are known from Tacitus, a historian and senator who observed the degradation of republican institutions. Fate of the empire was now decided not so much by the Senate as by the Praetorian Guards, the emperor's personal security force, created back in the times of Augustus. These suffocated Tiberius with a cushion, slayed Caligula by the sword, and hailed Claudius emperor. In all fairness, at the same time, the empire grew, expanding into new territories. Roman legions conquered part of Britain, where they founded a town called Londinium. Provinces were given a transparent taxation system, and the non-Roman nobility began to enter the Senate en masse. A grandchild of an Italian peasant, Vespasian Flavius, would become the...
All right, so we gave all of these guys their due credit of expanding the empire as a footnote. And they didn't even give them the credit. They're like, oh, well, their legions went and did this. I was like, okay, Claudius totally wasn't motivated by, trying to live up to the legacy of Julius Caesar, wasn't at all personally invested or in doing that or anything.
It would have been a fitting bookend, right, to end the Julio-Claudian dynasty by speaking to Claudius's interest to invade Britain, like his ancestor. But
yup, I just this video is we only got one more episode of this, Matt. We only got one more episode, and we'll be done. We'll even go a little bit longer next week if we need to.
Well, if memory serves, it's going to be interesting to do the next section because there's so little that's there. You know,
you're gonna have
like,
field day. This is where your like expertise is really gonna come in. Is like we're gonna be talking about the Flavians, and then we're gonna be talking about. Obviously, we talk about the four good emperors. And then it becomes third. We go right into Year of Four Emperors and Third Century Crisis.
Yeah,
and
the Severins and all that. Yeah, I think they just kind of say yada yada times.
The only thing that they bring up during the Third Century Crisis that I recall is Septimus Severus, who they make a very big deal about being African.
Yeah,
and perpetuating something is not accurate. He is they're trying to effectively say, oh, Rome had a black emperor, and they did not. They had Septimus Severus was definitely not European. He was of Phoenician descent. He was from a North African colony in modern I want to say Libya.
Yeah, sure.
But they were one of those Phoenician outlets like Carthage was. So, anyways, we are.
How much do you like your job, Michael? Septimius Severus was black.
Yeah,
I've
already had this discussion once recently.
Don't edit the Wikipedia article.
I'm not going to bother with that. I had a guy literally trying to argue with me that he was sending me a modern artist rendition of Septimus Severus as his proof. It was like, this painting was done a year ago. Like, I have no words. Anyways.
Yeah. I can think of there are some. If you want darker like emperors, there's places you can go. But if you're not willing to respect primary sources, it's like, do you even want to like help them out? Do you know what I mean?
Like literally,
if you want to look for melanated emperors, there's places you can go.
I had to explain to this person that Cleopatra was not actually Egyptian. That she was Macedonian.
That's tough. Hard.
And he refused to acknowledge the family. Which was, history is written by the victors. Like, her ancestor was the victor. Yeah. He was of the line of. He was a relation of Alexander the Great that became the ruler of the most prosperous region in his fucking empire.
Yeah.
But
Cleopatra was black. Just
shut up, Matt. No. Wrong. Anyways, let's catch up with the chat here. This video is triggering Michael. It is. It was way worse last week, though. Not last week. 2 weeks ago when we were talking about Julius. That was mind blowing. Ogden considers Crazy Matt the troublesome Jew of the chat. Oh, great. We're bringing that one back. Accurate. Hey, man, some days you just need alcohol. That is no joke. Really? I wouldn't call it an interesting video, Michael Byers. Call it a piece of shit hobbled together by a bunch of pretentious twats. Anyways, he's half right, Mo. I am troublesome. Claudius is a neckbeard. I don't think Claudius had a neckbeard. I know Nero certainly did, or at least there are multiple busts that have him depicted with
Yeah.
one.
That's the
Michael
popular
Breyer says, I like
trail.
Nero. That's an interesting choice. I think that he's an interesting figure to talk about. I like playing devil's advocate in academic forums about it, just because it's one of those
devil's
things.
advocate.
Well, it's like it's one of those things that's so easy. It's like, well, the primary sources say this. Like, yeah, and the primary sources all hated Nero. So how can how can you believe Tacitus as from an objective standpoint when even other primary sources contradict what Tacitus says about Nero? Tacitus makes up these horrible narratives about Nero that are like ridiculous, that are not backed up by later primary sources written in different eras of the empire. The viewpoint on Nero is still negative, but a lot of Tacitus's claims about specific things, like certain screwed up things that he claims that Nero did, other primary sources don't vet. So how can you sit here and say that Nero was a bad emperor when the primary source material is not consistent? How do you know that he wasn't a victim of narrative scapegoating?
Yeah.
And that is constantly a way to piss in people's Cheerios on academic forums because they can't argue against it.
Sure.
But
played a mean fiddle though. So
yeah, no shit. Crazy Matt is saying this is taking way longer than 20 minutes. I mean, yes, obviously, like we're EFAPing the video at this point. And we have Crazy Matt saying Shaka Zulu Caesar. That would be interesting. But anyways, Matt, I hope you don't mind. We're just going to close out at this point. I know that I normally bring up our campaigns. I know we normally bring up our campaigns. I am beat. It's been a day, and I didn't want to cancel because we pushed back the stream a week, and I found that if I let it go for 2 weeks, I just stop. And I actually like these streams are actually like a highlight for me.
Good.
So like important to keep going. So
I think the chat's enjoying it too. Dean,
I hope so.
All you guys.
I know that Mo Biggs gives me guff for boring him, but I hope that he does actually enjoy these videos. He says, "Hail the panel, hail the chat." Crazy Mad, why'd you have to be so troublesome? Now Ogden is all tuckered out from oppressing you. Oof. And then Michael Breyer says, "Hail to the panel, hail Caesar, hail the chat." Yeah, fair enough. Anyways, guys, you have a good night. Thanks so much for tuning in for When in Rome. We will see you next week. Back Curio Book 3, and we will have updates on SPQR soon.
See you guys.